Recording. Thank you for reminding me. Um, so when we're working with ligaments, one of the best things that we can do from a yoga perspective is to bring blood flow, to bring nourishment to an area. So mobility, making sure that after you're done with that initial immobilization that you might have to do when an acute injury occurs, when that part is over, mobilizing joint spaces that are injured is really important, and to break up some of the scar tissue, to get some of that freedom of movement back, but also to bring blood supply into an area so that there's healing. So when you're working with ankle injuries, you want to have things that are both creating mobility and things that are creating stability. And this is always, the balancing act that we're doing in our yoga practice, not just for our ankles and feet, but for our whole body, that we want to have this balance of stability and mobility. So when you have a joint that's been injured and you kind of shut down that joint, it can get very tight. So it can take a really long time to get your full mobility back. But specifically with an ankle, when you've had an ankle sprain, the stability gets lost in a lot of the ways that our ankle tends to move. So our practice today will be about both. We're going to work toward mobilizing the feet and the ankles, and then we're also going to work toward stabilizing the ankles and the feet. So yoga is so good for the ankles because so much of the practice requires a lot of balance. And when we lose stability on our ankle, we often lose our stability in our body. Remember, like we're chain linked, up through our body. So really important to keep, I say it all the time, that the more healthy we keep our ankles and feet, the better off we are as we age. Our capacity for nimbleness and responsiveness and stability is really, really important to prevent us from falling. So this will be good for a practice for all of us, regardless of whether you've had an ankle sprain or not in your life. All of us could use some of this. All right, feels like the nerve feedback system got disrupted by your injury, so it went over without warning. Yes, so that's another piece of this is restoring anytime you get injured in any way. It doesn't have to be a ligament tear. Um, our nervous system is now going to have a challenge to kind of rethread those same loops the same way because we're nervous. So um, that's absolutely part of it, as well as like retraining the proprioception is an absolute part of retraining after an injury. Okay, so close your eyes and notice already when you're sitting straight and tall on your seat, if your ankles are comfortable in the position you're in. Are you crisscrossed? I can't see you all. Are you in Virasana? What's the posture that you take in the beginning of practice? And how do your feet feel in this posture? Is there any support that you need? Is there sometimes if you take a little support underneath the outer ankles, it can restore some of the neutral instead of having that, overstretch of the outer ankle. So support yourself in any way that you need. And then scan through your body, and maybe your ankles are feeling perfectly fine today, and this will be a practice that's just something to put in your toolbox for another time when you might need it. So let's find the alignment of your spine and the sense of spaciousness across the heart. Come to feel your way into your breath. Notice how your breathing's been doing today. How are your emotional body, mental body, physical body unifying? Take care to notice if your exhales are short and choppy. See if you can just let them stretch a little bit to get our nervous system to get calm and at ease. And bring your hands together. Offering yourself the gift of presence, concentration, focus. Soften your eyes. See if you can let that loop of connection between the third eye, the hands, and the heart kind of find their way to each other. What intention would you like to place here? All right. Release your hands. Okay, we're going to start with a little seated work. So I'm going to move back so that you can see my feet. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do here is to pick up our foot. Now, maybe this is comfortable, maybe you need to sit up on a chair to do this. But first, just take a moment to just massage the bottom of your feet. You can take your thumbs. We'll start with one foot. And this is a great way of building that proprioception back into our awareness, getting our nervous system to notice sense of touch. And after a few strokes with your thumbs, maybe you can do some tapping on the bottom of your foot. Maybe you can do some scratching or some slapping, get some different feedback. It's not just one type of touch. And then we're going to take our fingers, kind of like you're hugging your own hand. We're going to interlace our fingers in between the toes. Now, this can be uncomfortable for some people. So, if you can't get down to the root of your toes with your fingers, that's fine. Just kind of embed your fingers in between your toes as best as you can. And then just take a moment to use your hand to roll around your ankle. And you can hold your ankle if you need some stabilization for it, and just welcome in some spreading of the toes. Now, depending on your feet, maybe you've got some issues with your toes. Very common, obviously, to have hammer toes, or to have one toe crossing over another toe, or to have a bunion on the big toe and your big toe kind of turns. So whatever kind of situation you've got on your toes, just do the best you can with this. Okay. And then we can release that. And now rub the top and the bottom of your foot. We'll get into the ankles as we go. Okay. And then release, and let's say hello to the other foot. And like I said, you can be in any position. You can, be sitting further down like this, or you can be sitting in a chair, whatever way is comfortable for you to be able to access your foot. When's the last time you gave your foot some love, with your hands, with your eyes, with your attention? A lot of times our feet we just go about our business. We put our shoes on and off we go. So let's give ourselves a little time to get to know our feet. It might feel good to rub through your arch, just kind of find what feels good. And then after a few motions with your thumbs, then we can tap. Okay, and just get some different sensation on the bottom of our feet. Maybe you want to slap. Maybe you want to scratch. Maybe you have very ticklish feet. Can you desensitize by having a little bit of different types of touch? Okay. All right, and then we're going to take the fingers and kind of thread them through the toes, in between the toes. Think of, if you've ever gotten a pedicure and you have that little thing that they stick between your toes, imagine your fingers are that little thing. And then once you get, as grounded into the base of your toes as you can, let's do some circling, kind of finding some motion of the toes. Don't worry about your ankle. I mean, your ankle will move, but really try to get this to be about the toes and the roots of the toes. All right, after you circle a few times, then we'll take our hands on top and bottom of your foot and just rub for a moment. Okay. Some people really love their feet to be massaged and touched. Some people have a real sensitivity to their feet. So just notice what camp you're living in. And then stretch your legs out. And let's have a moment to just flex and point and point. So up a little bit more. All right, so sitting up on the edge of something, we're going to flex our toes and then point, which just means put on a very high pair of high heels. So it's like you're pointing your feet, but flexing your toes. Okay, and then point your toes. And then point your toes, and then flex your feet. And then point your feet, and point your feet. And point your feet, and flex your feet. And this should be tiring. Okay. Stop if you get a cramp or if you feel like you lose control over your feet. And then also pay attention, are your feet doing the same thing as each other or not? All right, and then relax that and just wobble your feet a little bit. And now let's do some circles where we're kind of circling our ankles concentrically. And then circle the other way. And look at your feet while you're doing this. Are your ankles doing the same thing? How's your sense of nervous system connection to your feet? All right, and then just wag your feet, relax them, relax your legs, just let them wave. All right, and then the last movement we'll do is inverting. So that means imagine the bottom of your feet want to talk to each other. So turn the bottom of your feet toward each other, and then turn the bottom of your feet away from each other. Now this is a full leg action. So you're going to notice this in other parts of your legs. Stretching the peroneal muscles on the outside of your shins, stretching the inner ankles, and just kind of see that inversion, which is where the feet turn toward each other, and eversion, where the feet turn away from each other. Just notice what kind of range you have with that. And are the ankles the same? So this is a lot of range of motion that our ankles have. Now let's just go ahead and rock them about again. Our feet can get tired like anywhere else in our body. We have a lot of muscles, a lot of ligaments, a lot of tendons, a lot of fascia, a lot of bones, a lot of joints. There's a lot going on, and we bleed there all day long. So let's have a sense of deep respect and kindness for what our feet do for us. Okay, let that go now, and we'll go ahead and find our way onto our back. Bring your knees into your chest. And a little bit of rocking. So let your rest of your body start to find some awareness, not just our feet. Okay. Hang on to the knees and we'll circle, kind of rolling in one direction. And then circling the other way. And let's try to remember these kinesthetic chains in our body that our feet relate to everything. We can find connections from our hips to our feet, even from our diaphragm to our feet, our neck. There's lots of connections in the body. All right, let's open up the knees away from the middle and bring them back in toward, and just enjoy this sense of freedom in your hip joints. All right, and then right knee into your chest, left leg long on the ground. And as we always do, mobilize your ankles here. And notice if you have any snaps, cracks, pops, if there's movement that hurts or if there's movement that feels vulnerable. A good squeeze of that knee in, and then cross the knee over to the left, stretch open through your chest and breathe. Let your head feel heavy. Relax the weight of your head down into the ground and breathe through your open chest. And then come back to center. Pick up your head, a squeeze, and then we'll switch sides. Left knee in, right leg long. Move around in your ankles. See what feels good. Again, any snaps, cracks, pops, pains, tightness, what are you noticing? And give your feet a little wiggle and see if you can just sense the bottom of your feet with your awareness. And then cross that left knee over to the right and stretch open through your chest. A big breath here, lengthening through your heart, through your ribs, through your breath. All right, and then come back to center. Bring that knee in, pick up your head, and then we'll relax the head back down. Grab onto both feet, happy baby pose. Drop your knees down, maybe a little rocking to and fro. Let your back open up a little bit. And then start to feel the four corners of your feet while we're here. So hold the outer feet if you can. Sometimes we hold the inner feet, but for right now, see if you can grab onto the outside edges of your feet and press through the big toe and the inner heel mound. And spread the toe beds so that the roots of your toes, the toe mounds, broaden. And then relax and melt your knees back into your chest. A little bit of rocking. And we'll go ahead and roll over to our side and come up to your hands and your knees. Okay. Find your way into some cat-cows, arching the back and rounding the spine. Just taking a little time to feel your way into some movement. Enjoy what the spine has to offer today. Enjoy linking your breath up with the movements in your body. And take some time to move any which way you want to move. You can do some circles or some lateral movements. Doesn't it feel good to just loosen your spine up? Okay. All right, and then stretch back to a child's pose. Walk the hands far out in front of you and lengthen through your rib cage. A full breath here. And then walk the hands over to one side. Feeling a reaching through your side body. Breathe deeply. Over to the other side and open up the ribs. All right, come back up onto all fours and do any movement that you like, and then we'll find our way to a twist. Arm up, let's roll your wrists, just like you're moving your ankles, move your wrist and your fingers, and then we'll drop that shoulder down, twisting to the side. Enjoy. Take a deep breath to mobilize your lungs, your ribs. Feel your shoulder blades spread apart from each other, opening up those muscles between your shoulders. And then bring your arm up in the air again, moving your wrist around, wiggling your fingers. And then we'll switch sides. Bring that other hand up in the air. Give some movement to your wrist. Move around in your fingers. And then we'll take that arm under and twist this way. Spread your shoulder blades apart. Breathe into the lungs deeply. Keep a sense of ease through your neck, through your head. All right, and then we'll reach that arm back up in the air. A little movement of your hands. And we'll come to a dog pose. So take a little time here to feel your feet. So first, just maybe knead your feet. So pick one foot up and place it back down. Pick the other foot up, place it back down. And when you place your foot back down as you go back and forth, notice the spreading of the toe beds. And see if your feet do the same thing. Look at your feet through your hand, or, just look down at your feet and notice, do they spread the same? Do they not?
Are they anchored in the same placement, or is one turned in or turned out? Just notice what your tendencies are. And then once you have some ground with those toe beds, let's drop one heel and then drop the other heel. Just a nice gentle pedaling of your feet. Feeling that lengthening all the way up through the sit bones, the hamstrings. I guess it was Monday, we did a lot of work with the back line of the body, and this is a really important aspect of the soles of the feet. There's a lot of fascia in the soles of our feet that really have a relationship with the hamstrings and the calves in particular, but our glutes, our spinal muscles, everything's related. So see what you're opening up here. All right, and then we'll come down to a child's pose, but this time instead of pointing our toes back, curl the toes under, touch your toes, and touch your inner ankles. So the big toe mounds and the inner ankles touch each other, and then stretch back to wherever your body can go for a child's pose. Spread the toes, spread the bones of the feet, spread the fascia of the bottom of the feet. And you may not be able to go all the way back with your weight, and that's okay. Just go back as much as your toes and feet can allow. Spread the bottom of the feet broadly. Open up every nook and cranny in the bottom of your feet that you can. All right, and then come back up onto all fours and tap. Just give your feet a nice little tap on the ground. Again, that proprioception, this is where my feet are. I know the ground. All right, and then we'll curl the toes under and lift to a dog pose again. Find your breath. And this time, when we come into the dog pose, instead of pedaling quickly, drop one heel down, the other knee bends, and then see if you can bend the same knee that the heel is down on the ground. So stretch the soleus and the Achilles in a slightly different way. So that one foot, the heel is down on the ground, and the knee bends as much as you can. And then switch, other heel down. So our opposite knee is bent with the heel up, but even with the foot that the heel is down, see if you can bend the knee toward the ground. And just notice what's there. That's your soleus muscle. It's underneath your big strong calf, your gastrocnemius. See if you can trace that to the Achilles and all around the back ankle. All right, and then relax. Walk your feet forward and come to Uttanasana. Come off your hands. That soleus muscle is often a culprit of ankle tightness if we don't have the ability to mobilize that soleus muscle. So just notice how different that feels than the broader calf. Inhale for a halfway lift, opening up through the spine. And let's pedal your feet here with our hands on high blocks. So the chest is broad. Let your hip move back. Feel free to knock your knee toward the midline as you bend it. So we're just really kind of mobilizing our hips a little bit now and their relationship with the ankles. Now notice as you draw your knee toward the midline, your feet are moving into a little bit of inversion and eversion, kind of stretching those outer ankles. All right, and then relax and melt into a forward fold. Push through your feet, rising up, bring the arms upward to the sky. Lift through your heart. Okay, let's cactus open the chest, spread your wings. And then exhale and round in. One more time. Arms up, maybe tip back a little bit. Spread your wings and then release your hands down by your sides. All right, so just a little bit of mobilization and strength building. Come up toward your toes and back toward your heels. And you can do this slowly or more quickly. Kind of gaining responsiveness. So there's a few things to focus on here. First, what are the soles of your feet feeling? Give your proprioception, your nervous system feedback. Notice the texture of the mat. Notice how the weight is changing. So move slow enough and don't go so extreme enough where you just feel this rocking of weight bearing back and forth from toes to heels. And then see what it feels like to spread your toe beds a little bit more. Let's pause the rocking. Spread your feet as broad as they can and feel the grounding of the big toe mounds, the grounding of the pinky toe mound, and the heel, the center of the heel or either side of the heel, whichever is your way of focusing on the heel best. And close your eyes. Notice your body. Where do you like to bear weight? Are you a lefty or a righty? Do you tend to bear weight in the inner feet? Do you tend to bear weight in the outer feet? Do you tend to bear weight in the toes or the heels? Like, notice where your tendencies lie. Many times we have a dominant foot, even when we feel like we're spreading things out evenly, we may have more comfort or awareness in one foot than the other. Okay, so notice that. We're going to do a little balance work in a bit. So just notice that deep grounding. Unlock your knees, unlock the pelvic floor, unlock the diaphragm, unlock the throat. Find all these gateways in the body and open them, relax them. And as you breathe, see if you can sense that your breath lives in your feet, that the soles of your feet can move just like the diaphragm moves energetically. Imagine sending some roots down. Unlock your ankles, unlock your knees, unlock your hips, unlock your pelvis so that we're not locking any joints out. Can you feel that even weight bearing through all four corners of your feet? Do you feel a collapse in the inner ankles at all? Do you feel a collapse in the outer ankles at all? Can you lift? If you feel like your inner ankles collapse and your arches collapse, can you lift the inner ankle bones up toward the inner knees? All right. Inhale and reach the arms up. We're going to come up onto our toes. It doesn't have to be a big lift. Just go where your body can be self-sustaining. And just notice if you're steady or if your ankles are wobbly, engage your core. Notice how the pelvic floor and the core can help support what's happening in the lower body. And then release your feet back down. Fold forward, Uttanasana. A halfway lift, extending through the spine. Exhale and melt again. Step your left foot back, come to a lunge. Ground yourself. We've had so much awareness going on with your feet. Can you feel it here? Spread those back toes, stretch the heel, spread your whole front foot. Heart forward, and we'll go ahead and bend and straighten. Now, as we sometimes do, practice one of the passes of straightening the front leg with your toes bearing down. Lengthen through the whole top of your foot and root. And then come back, knee over ankle. And the next pass, maybe lift your toes and lengthen your heart and draw your chin in. And just notice the difference between those two actions. All right, and then ground yourself. Walk your back foot forward, a halfway lift. And we'll switch to the other side. Left foot in front, right foot's back. Open up those hip flexors, just enjoy the lunge. Notice your feet, press into the earth and ground yourself. As we start to mobilize, straightening and bending your knee, try to take a pass with each way. First, toes spreading and rooting down as you lengthen the heart and reach the hip back. And then come forward. And the next pass, lift your toes and notice if your foot wants to turn in or out. Spread the toe beds, reach the hip back, lengthen your heart, drop your chin. And then come back to center. Hands onto the ground, back to a dog pose. Take a little time and notice if your feet and ankles are opening up a little bit. Stretch the heels back toward the wall behind you and then down toward the ground. Tip the pelvis into an anterior tilt as you do this. Sit bones high. We'll come forward into a plank now and notice the feet here. Spread those toe beds. Do the ankles like to flex this much? Or do you have trouble with it? Okay. We'll put our knees down to the ground and find our belly. Roll the shoulders. Take a deep breath. A cobra pose. Stretch all the way through to your toes. Reach into those pointed feet. Exhale, come down. One more time. Lengthening through the legs. Press the feet down, open the chest. Exhale and relax. Come up onto all fours and take a moment for a child's pose. And you can choose whether you want your toes curled under or lying flat. One of the gifts of yoga is that it's one of the few forms of exercise that we do with bare feet. So much of the exercising we do in our lives, we have shoes on. So let's really appreciate all that our feet get to do in our yoga practice. Okay. Come back up onto all fours. Let's bring that right foot forward again. Curl the back toes under and lift to a lunge. Ground yourself here. Rise up, crescent lunge. Pay attention to the ankles and the feet. So just keep bringing your awareness there. What's happening? A lot of times we have so much emphasis on focusing on every other place in our body that we just assume our feet are going to do the job that they're supposed to do. So let's give some time to notice where they are. Ground, spread your whole front foot and root it to the ground. Spread those back toes and feel the weight bearing that you take on those toe beds. And then notice how when you use your core and your legs, you get a little bit of support for the feet. It's not just the feet supporting the legs, it's also the legs supporting the feet. See what it might feel like now to lift the front heel up off the ground a little bit. Okay, so strengthening through the calf, strengthening through the foot, noticing the ankle might feel vulnerable, breathing deeply. And then we'll release the heel down, hands down, back foot comes forward and fold. A halfway lift, opening through the spine. Exhale and melt again. Step your other foot back. Left foot's in front now. Take a look at your foot. If you know that you kind of ignore your feet sometimes, and you only pay attention to them when they're hurting, let's look at your foot. Spread those toe beds out. Anchor through the four corners of your feet. Get real active. Notice the feeling under your foot. What's the texture like? And then when you're ready, rise up, crescent lunge. Your foot is doing a lot of work to stabilize you here. Your ankle's doing a lot of work to keep you in this position. Notice it. See if you can ground into your heel, ground into your toe beds. Notice your back foot. Can you spread those toes out? Can you hug to the midline with your legs and engage a bit in your core and pelvic floor and notice the impact that has on your feet? How's your breath? All right, let's lift the heel. And you can put, if your balance gets a little scary in that position, you can always take your arms wide or your hands onto your hips. You can even do this holding on to something. Lift that heel a little bit. Engage the core. The inner thighs are working. Feel your hamstrings, your glutes, everything's supporting. Not just relying on the calf to lift that heel. And then release. And place the hand and foot down. Back foot comes forward. Fold. A halfway lift. Opening up. Exhale. Releasing back down. Push through the feet. Rising up. Trace down through the center. And notice Tadasana again. Feet hip width apart. Grounding well. All right, we're going to come into a chair pose. Keep your hands on your thighs for a moment. So as you kind of ground your legs with your hands, notice the weight landing in your heels a little bit more. Kind of look at your feet, lift and spread your toes and see if they do the same thing or not. Okay. Spread those toes as broadly as you can. Root the toe beds. Drop a little lower. A little extra weight in the heel, more spreading in the toes. Inhale, reach your arms up. Find your breath. See if you can lift the front of your shins. Find your shin strength helping this action in the ankles. Breathing deeply. Push your feet, especially your heels, press them down so your glutes are sharing. And then we'll come up, slowly up onto your toe beds. Heels up off the ground. And then release your hands down. Tadasana one more time. Do you tend to go into your left foot, right foot, front feet, back feet, in feet, out feet? Where do you like to live in your feet? Notice the soles of the feet. Get your nervous system to feel as sensitive as an octopus with all of its little tentacles. Right, and then take your legs wide, turn sideways on your mat. Let's just open up the inner thighs here a little bit. Okay. While you're down here with your torso a little lower, spread your feet apart. You might even put your hands on the ground so you kind of lift your toe beds and spread them a little further out. Spread across the entire ridge of those toe beds. Feel the ground. Lift the arches, ground through the four corners of your feet. And then we'll inhale and come up to a standing star. Find your breath. Exhale, we'll find our way down. Let's just move here for a moment. And these goddess movements, you don't have to have your deepest pose. You can, but don't feel like you have to go as deep as you might. All right, and then after a few warm-up rounds, we'll come and stay. And again, don't feel like you have to be in your lowest place. Think of the heart lifting. You can have your hands on your thighs somewhere or anywhere you want. And now we're going to lift lift the heels. Spread the toe beds and lift the heels. Lift your chest. Find the opening of your knees. Pull back from outer knees to outer hips. Breathing. Notice any shaking or wobbling that's happening. Full breaths here. And then heels come back down, root and rise. Okay, heel toe your feet in a little bit more. Just give your feet a little bit of a shake. We've been working hard with those feet, so give them a little release. Any balance pose is going to be very good for your ankle to strengthen it. So we'll try tree pose today. We're going to start just by having our other toes touch the ground. So we still have 2 points of contact on the ground. With your right leg, notice if you tend to sink your hip out, if this would be a more comfortable place or familiar place. Hug the hip in. Recruit a lot of stabilizing forces through that leg and through your core and pelvic floor. So you're not only relying on, sinking into joints to stabilize yourself. And then slowly start to inch that heel of your left leg up the calf a little bit further. All right, and just notice now your weight bearing on that one foot. Octopus tentacles into the ground. Spread out. Notice if your arch collapses, lift. If your outer ankle collapses, lift. Notice where your tendencies lie of where you collapse and see if you can lift out of that collapse. Bring the arms up. Notice if you're a toe gripper. See if you can spread the toe beds. Just notice what your ankle and foot do to support you here. How's your breath? All right, and then release your hands down and give that foot a good little shake, maybe both legs. Nice little shake. Any balance poses that you do will be good for cultivating a lot of strength in your ankles. This is one of the many reasons why our yoga practice is so good for us. All right, let's start on the left. Toes of the right foot are still on the ground. Open up your knee. Notice if you're, if you like to lean into this hip, if this would be if you were just kind of hanging out, if this is your tendency, see if you can hug the hip in, unlock the knee, feel the femur bone root back a bit, and notice your foot, your left foot. Are your toes spread? Are you a toe gripper? Are you a collapser on the arch? Are you a collapser on the outer foot? Just notice here. Lift up, try to root through your foot with your octopus tentacles, and then with that suction, lift upward through your leg. Let's take our right leg and put it on our calf somewhere. And just notice your ankle. Moment by moment, there's all this proprioception going on. This is such good feedback for your nervous system. Arms can come up in the air. Try to lift up out of your ankle. Lift your weight up out of your ankle, upward. Root your toes, your foot downward, and lift out of your ankle. Relax your neck. Relax your throat. Relax your eyes and your tongue. How's your breath? All right, and then release that foot down and give your leg a little shake. So, we did tree pose today, but really there's so many, any of the balance poses where you're on one foot will encourage a lot of growth of stability in your ankle. If you have access to a Bosu ball, that's one of those big round blue balls. They're not round, it's like half ball. So it's like, one side of a ball and the other side is flat. And if you do some work where you're standing on that and it's very unstable, or if you have a wobble board of some kind, unstable surfaces where you feel safe, great way to work on your ankle strength. Okay, so now we're going to move a little bit into some flexibility. So first, we're going to come into a dog pose, but I want you to grab a blanket and roll it. You can also flip the back side of your mat over that blanket if you like, so there's some grip. And we're going to come into a dog pose with our heels, our toes up onto the blanket. Okay, so you could use a towel folded, you can use a rolled up mat, you could even use blocks if you want. And we're going to just let our heels not just collapse toward the ground, stretch the heels back toward the wall behind you and then descend them. Look at your feet and notice if you're collapsing into the inner or outer ankles. If you notice that, lift out of the collapse. Just open up those calves. All right. Now, walk your feet forward and we're going to come into Malasana. Grab that blanket and stick it underneath your heels. So we're in a deep squat. Now, if your knees or hips don't squat like this, you just do as best as you can. You can always, kind of like lean forward on blocks or whatever you need for your knees and your hips. Heels on the blanket to begin. So this actually requires a lot of strength in your ankles. It will stretch you're into deep flexion, which is good and important, but it also requires a lot of strength in the front of our ankles to hold this position. So just notice if you have the flexibility in your ankles to do this. And if you don't, if you tend to like lean into one, try to get enough support so that you're not, so that you're symmetrical, that you're not leaning into the good, quote unquote, good leg. And then if you're feeling really comfortable, try easing that blanket out of there. You might need to widen your feet a little bit so that your feet are actually on the ground. And when you squat like this, it's a lot of front shin effort, but it opens up the deep Achilles well, and it'll force the ankles into some very deep flexion. So it's good range of motion. And if you can't do it, just keep that blanket there. Okay.
And let's remember that other cultures, this is the restful position. This is a position of ease. And because we don't ever do this in our culture, this is not a normal part of our day, we lose this ankle flexibility and hip and knee flexibility to be able to sit comfortably in a squat, to rest in a squat. All right, and then we'll come out of there. Come on to all fours and move your hips, move your spine, cat cow, dog pose, whatever it is that you need. And now we'll come back to a child's pose, but with our feet in the normal position. So we're stretching the front of our ankles now. It's coming into that extension of the foot. If you want a little more of a stretch, you can put the tops of your feet onto your blanket. If you know your ankles don't like this, a good way for child's pose, if your ankles are sensitive and can't open like this, is to put the blanket underneath the front of your ankles. So you can try that. A rolled blanket underneath the front of the ankles will give a lot of room for the ankles if that extension of the ankle is hard. So always know that you can support anything that needs supporting as you start to work your way toward better strength and mobility. All right, let's come out of there. Come onto your back and grab your strap. Breathing, knees into your chest, a little bit of rocking. All right, let's lift that foot straight up into the strap, right foot into the strap, left leg on the ground. And again, just like whenever we do this pose, feel that full back line from your back of your head to the soles of the feet. All right, and then we're going to open the leg out to the right, stretching that whole inner groin, and lengthen through the big toe and the inner heel, and see if you can pull the pinky toe side of your foot back toward your hip. Lengthening through the inner ankle now, lengthening through the arch, lengthening through the inner foot, the inner thigh. Make all those connections. And then we'll come back up, take the strap into the left hand and cross your right leg over to the left. And now stretch the pinky toe side of your foot away from your knee. Okay, so we're stretching the outer ankle, just getting into that range there. Opening up those peroneal muscles. Those are the muscles on the side, the outside of your calf. All right, and then back in toward the center, foot back up in the air, and maybe just have a little bit of movement in your toes, your ankle, whatever you're in the mood for. Just free things up. And then we'll switch to the other side. Left foot in the strap. Enjoy Supta Padangusthasana here, just opening up that whole back line, toes back and bottom of toes, all the way to the back of the head. All right, and then we'll open up the leg out to the left. Release any tension through your body. Drop your weight into the earth. Now, see if you can stretch through the big toe and the inner heel, lengthening that inner ankle well. All right, and then lift that leg up, and we'll cross the left leg over to the right, strap in the right hand,
And once you get there, now we'll stretch the pinky toe side of your foot away from your knee. So opening up those peroneal muscles on the side of your shin, the outside of your shin. And then back up. And then release the leg back down. Let's take our right foot on left knee. Come into a reverse pigeon. Open up the hip a little bit. Relax through your head. Feel free to wiggle your toes. Your foot is so close. Take a look at it again. You know, what have you noticed about your feet? One of the things I always notice when I have a little focus on my ankles and feet is that my feet do not do the same thing. When I try to spread my toes, my feet do not look the same on the ground. I have more capacity in one foot than the other, so I wonder if you feel the same. Okay. We all have tendencies of where we like to weight bear that we've been developing our whole lives. So if you know you always tend to lean into one foot more than the other, this is good information. And when you're going for walks, practice noticing your footfalls on the foot that you don't usually bear weight very well in. Switch sides when you're ready. If you always go up and down the stairs with the same foot leading, try practicing leading with the other foot. If you were to step up on something unstable, like a stone or a brick or a railroad tie or a piece of sidewalk that's uneven when you're walking, if you always tend to use one foot for the more scary stabilization, practice using the other foot. Try to train your body to notice your habits and give yourself more capacity, more adaptability by using that non-dominant foot as much as you can. When you're brushing your teeth, try doing some heel lifts. Rocking onto your heels, lifting your toes, rocking onto your toes, lifting your heels. Give yourself little moments of the day where you open up your feet. If when you sit on a foot often, then notice sit on the other foot or don't sit on any feet. If you're always crossing your legs, try to put 2 feet on the ground when you're sitting. Try to pay attention is really the bottom line. Pay attention to how you use your legs and your feet through the day. All right, let's go ahead and come out of that and let's windshield wiper our knees left and right. And remove your hips over to the right now and drop into a little deeper twist and enjoy. And if also you tend to get some plantar fasciitis, or if you have stiffness in your ankles or the soles of your feet when you first wake up, maybe before you get out of bed, do some of the exercises we did here. Some of those ankle mobility, just simple rolling of the ankles and wiggling of the toes before you get out of bed. Some flexes and some points before you get out of bed can be a helpful way of warming the feet up to bear weight. Switch sides when you're ready. If you wear uncomfortable shoes, give them away. Respect your feet enough to give them proper footwear. All right, now when we come into Shavasana, choose a position that's good for your body. And imagine, once you get comfortable, turn the palms of the hands up. And imagine the soles of the feet are as sensitive as the palms of your hands. So even though you can't turn the palms of your feet up right now, imagine the ease and the openness in the bottom of your feet are as spacious and exquisitely sensitive as your hands. When you just gently lie down, don't change anything, but notice if you feel like your legs and your feet
are orienting in the same way? Or do you have one that, turns out more, or one that feels longer, one leg feels longer? Just notice your proprioception. And then melt your way into the ground and let go of all the attention to detail and just notice the ease of surrender and the ease of your breath. Let's begin to deepen the breathing, stretch your body, and move in any way that feels good to you. Take your time, finding your way to your side. Especially as hiking season is upon us here in Colorado. Let's enjoy our feet, protect our feet, care for our ankles, care for our feet so they carry us to all the beautiful places, whether it's, across your house or to the errands that you need to do or to the top of a mountain. As we come to sit, be so thankful for everything that our feet and our ankles do for us. And bring your hands together and this sense of balancing stability and mobility. Let's offer this kind of energy, balance of freedom and stability outward to the world. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.